Hey, we are back. Um, let's see what we're doing today. Let's test. Let's start by getting our hands a little dirty by testing out this. I'm just going to commit these changes. I'm gonna want to stash this stuff that gets generated. Um, to do updated. Sure. Okay. So what I want to do is go into our CLI here, and let's go to Houston CLI. Maybe we'll actually fix a couple things up with our CLI right now. Because yeah, generate server. If generate server. Yeah, I feel like currently I do need to generate this stuff, otherwise we'll get errors in our implementations. Okay, so we'll keep this, but we're going to generate the migrations. We won't run the migrations because I don't want to mess up my database. We'll update the routes, update navigation. Sure. Just want to make sure everything is working. We'll run all this. Okay, and then the model we want to actually generate is maybe our food model again. So here I want to test out that our query set is getting generated. This is what it looks like right now, but it should be all foods query set or something like that. And we want to make sure our upload image widget is going correctly. Actually, yeah, we need to make sure that is, I think we actually have to fix that if I recall correctly. So let's go to our bricks and not our bricks, but our blueprints, the food one. Image true. Movie, image true, allow blank true. What's different about these? URL, they're the same. We should say allow blank equals true for this too. Oh, what is the property? Properties are not allowed. Okay, that's fine. And let's just step through how that would work. So when we generate a scaffold a feature, we want to be looking into the Flutter part of this. Scaffolding, Django API feature. Not Django. Generate Flutter. That's for the formatting. Ba-da-ba-dum. I think it's in here. Okay, let's search for the word image. Include image upload. Okay, so our form inputs. Include image uploader is false. If p.isImage, we do this. We set it to true. And okay, this is just to do the import. Oh, this is just form inputs. Okay, so that part seems all right. Oh, I think image upload widget. Okay, we did fix that because this used to be called upload image widget or something. So we're good there. Where's the other case for image? Okay, so if property.isImage, we basically go and do like this seems right to me. Well, but why didn't this work? I feel like this didn't work before. Okay, well, let's try it out. So we're gonna do dart bin CLI.dart, and again, we are just normally this would like actually spawn a CLI that lets you like do input and stuff, but rather than me going through that, I just have it hard coded here to generate the one that I want with all the options that I want and then returning out. So let's see what happens here. Yeah, so we do want to generate the Serverpod code currently because, oh, wow, no such file or directory. VNV bin Python. Oh, yeah, because now the way we make migrations is actually different because we do it with Docker. So let's just go to our make file. So really what we want to do is actually call this, which I think actually, yep. Because we're not running it locally, we are running it here, args. We don't need to actually run it with the venv anymore because we don't want to do that. Process.run executable. I guess the executable would just be Docker in this case. I think. Like it'd be something like this, just Docker and then compose exec. Da, da, da. Maybe that'll work. Okay, let's try running this again. And we gotta wait for the Serverpod one to go. Okay, it looks like it got through there. And now we're actually doing the build runner for Flutter. While that's going, let's get our Flutter app open. This is showing some error. Oh yes, that is a change we have to fix too. So what can I search for to get this single? Maybe I'll just search for this. Yay, okay. Oh no. Yes, here we go. Not that one. It's not that one. It could be one of these. It's when, if it equals null, we do that. We know it's not null anymore, so we can just basically put that there. That is what we need to fix, because that should get rid of that error. Let's double check. ID, yeah. Okay. Let's run it one more time. And I should have committed these changes before I ran it, but I guess we wouldn't have known, so whatever. Because I don't actually want to commit the generated code. I just want to commit this change and basically the stuff inside the CLI. So that's fine. We can commit that. Okay, before we commit it, let's just make sure everything's good. I'm going to restart the analysis server in Flutter. We're not going to run a pub get. And it's telling us about fixes. No, don't show again. I don't care about that. Okay. Yep, looks like stuff is working. So let's see if we actually start up our server. So I have the server here, make up. We also do, in order for this to work, I actually do have to make migrate because we have to add that model. That's fine. We can revert that back, or we can just keep it safely. Okay, make up. So we're good. And then here we need to run this app. So, oops, wrong one. Here we need to run this app. We're going to run Mac develop. Sure. Over so I could run on iOS, whatever we want. Okay, cool. So now we have food in here. Let's see if everything works. The food name will be apple. The price will be $5.0. Description: yummy apples. Yeah, this is what we need to fix here. Calories 25. Image URL will just keep blank. Okay, great. Everything's working except for that one thing. Let's just make sure that the data persists. Food. Look at that. We have our CRUD for our food. We can delete it. No foods. Beautiful. Yeah. So what's going on with this issue? I'm gonna just before we get too far ahead, I am gonna commit the changes in the CLI. So everything that doesn't have a dot dot, basically the CLI, the blueprints for food. Yeah, we can commit that. I basically want to commit these 4 things, but because I'm in the CLI directory, I think I can just go git add dot. Let's just see the git status now. Yeah, so it only added these, which is what we want. Git commit -m. Fixes for minor code scaffold fixes. And we'll just push that change now. Okay, now I want to basically go back here. We're going to do a git stash. And then I actually need to also, because git stash doesn't delete deleted files, we want to actually do, I think it's git clean, but I'm going to double check that because I don't want to screw this up. I like literally asked this yesterday. I could probably just search for this, search chats for git clean. Nope. Okay. How do I remove untracked files git? Yeah, git clean dash fd. And I'm going to try and remember this now. We want to clean, we want to force, which I assume is what the F is. And then D, yeah, N is for dry run. Okay, F is for to forcefully clean, and D is includes directories. Yes, that's what we want. So now we should have a clean Git repo. Cool. Now I should, I could migrate my database back too, but because I'm not changing the model, it should be fine. Okay, so I really want to figure out why the image is not coming here. So serialize, that's the wrong serialize. This serialize, I think. Nope, that's the blueprint serializer. Oh wait, it should be this. I think. Image. No. That's for, oh, that's the Django one. We want the Flutter one. Flutter. There we go. This is the one I'm looking for. So okay, let's oh I've already removed that code. I can just run it again. I can just run it again. And for our purposes now, just to save time, I don't care about rerunning server. I just want to generate the Flutter code. Update routes. Yeah, we can keep that. We'll do everything that's Flutter related. Okay. I mean, you know what? Let's keep this really fast and simple. We're just going to generate the code because we're just looking for one thing here, because we can just rerun this again with everything turned back on. So Dart bin cli.dart. I want to see if the import happens. So now here, if we go to food form form widget, okay, we do get this. So it is doing something for us. So basically, okay, include image uploader if p.isImage. Okay, cool. So let's now see. So what it's doing is if we need to include the image uploader, we do. So now let's search for image again. Okay, so let's just look through this. So if the property.type is user, we continue. If constant hidden fields contain property.name, I don't think image is a hidden field. Nope. Okay, then we go through the property types. If contains property type, form element types. Let's see what these are. That's probably our problem. Oh, URL. No, that is the right type. Let's just double check. Food. Yeah, it is of type URL. So we know we're getting into this statement here. If the type is text, we do something. Else, if it's datetime, else, if property.isImage, which we were using elsewhere. So, right? If we go to the Flutter blueprint serializer image, let's go to the if p.isImage, yeah. So we know that that's true. Value is equal to this stuff. But if we actually look here, it's just a text controller, provider.image controller. Why? It's going to be something silly. It always is. Profile. So we add the value. If property type is equal to text. Else. Yeah. And we add this items that add value. Food, image URL, type is URL, image true. And let's just double check that another one, like movie, I think has an image. Yeah, image true, allow blank true. Okay. Okay, let's just go through here and we're going to print out property, print out. Could also probably just add a breakpoint here, but property dot, property dot name, property dot image is image, property dot, that's all I probably care about. Okay, so let's run this again. We should see some things printing out here. Okay, so let's find image URL. Yeah, okay, property, instance of blueprint property, image URL, and is image true? So why doesn't else if property is image? Oh, I see what's happening. Because we've said that form element types include this. So actually, value equals property type equals text. Yeah, okay. So let's do a switch. Let's kind of change how this will work. So we can switch on the property dot type. See, it was something stupid. The case we will use text. And in this case, we basically will go value. Let's just have a string value equals just blank or whatever. We can even, let's make this a late string just so it'll never actually be blank because we're going to handle all cases here. So what we'd want here is, and you see these like indented weird, and it's just so that when it gets formatted in the code, it actually like looks a little bit better, even though we run the formatter after. So it's probably not necessary anymore since I added that, but what we'd want to do is say value equals this. I missed something there. Should be value equals this. I guess the semicolon's missing. Otherwise, we want to have case for image, which I think is the type. For our image type, yeah, case for image, we are going to handle it by basically taking this. Oh, we should also have a break on these, of course. Break. And then we can do, let's just put a default, and the default will be what we originally had in our statement here. Default value equals this. We don't need a break after the default. So now we still need to add. Okay, let's just make sure this is right. So basically we're switching on here. The switch goes all the way to there. Either way, we're adding value in. Else, so this is referring to this statement. And let's just make sure date time is not in there. Oops, form element types. No, it's not. Let's also see if, okay, so we have char, we have text. Like we could also, yeah, int double URL. Yeah, that's fine. We can even have like our cases for text here, case for int. That way we can, oops. And case for double, we would basically do this. Oh, I see. It is URL. Hmm. The problem is URL. Yeah, type is URL. This case is covered by previous ones. Oh, yeah. And double. Oh, I wanted char there. The difference between char and text is char is like a single line. Text is like, a text area kind of thing. So I mean, this will work as long as URL is image. Um, but like in theory, at some point this will probably become a file upload widget, not just a image upload widget. Um, so this should be fine. We'll keep it like that for now. Okay, so let's run this again and see if our Flutter code. Look at that. It did work kind of. The only problem is oh, this could just be because the generator didn't run. Let's look at our provider again. Provider. Yeah. There probably is a set image in here. Maybe there's not. Okay. So that's one more thing we have to fix. We need to make sure that our form adds the image property. So we're getting closer. Let me just double check. Set image URL. Yeah. But this is correct now, at least on this side. Okay, so let's go back here, and we can go and oh, I can actually get rid of some stuff. We don't need this anymore. That's for profile. Cool. Okay. So in theory, we should have something for the provider. We can get rid of these prints. Okay, so let me just make sure we don't have anything for this now. How did this ever work? I feel like this used to work. Okay, so now we need to look at our brick for the Flutter feature, and we go into, this would be in presentation, providers, and the form provider. Form controllers. Like, I feel like we need a whole other, form setters. Okay. Form setters equal this. Okay. Okay. If form element types includes URL. Oh, this is if not form element types. So we can probably just do if property.type is equal to URL. We'll have a continue in here, but we'll do something first. Items.add. I feel like it's going to be the same code. Let's just see. Okay, I guess we can probably then just go if or property.type is equal to image, is equal to URL. Then we should get that this time. Okay, let's go back here. Now, yeah, we have our set image URL, which goes string, update food to copy with image URL. Beautiful. Okay, so let's commit our CLI changes. Okay, fix to image, image upload generation. And let's just push those changes. Now, why do I not see, this should have a, Oh no. Did my food thing somehow get committed? Was I not paying attention? Why is this stuff committed? I don't remember committing this. Unless food was always here. That's possible, actually. Maybe it was just the back end stuff that was causing an issue. Okay, so let us try this now one more time. We're going to turn everything to true. And we'll run the CLI just to make sure that the implementation actually works. So this will actually generate the backend code too, generate the Serverpod code, database stuff, all the good things. It's running the Serverpod migration. I feel like that's going to cause an issue. It's basically like the same migration. Darn. Okay, yeah, I think that's causing an issue because it kind of stash start changes. Let's do run migrations to false and run this again. And then maybe we'll do a full clean test. Okay. Okay, we are going to go back here, make sure there's no problems. We're going to rebuild our app, and we're going to test to see if we actually have this proper. Did everything finish though? Let's make sure. Yep, it did. Okay, so food, add a food. Yes, we have an image uploader now. Let's do banana. Bananas are $10, Michael. I don't know how many calories it is, but let's just do that. And let's just upload the Jurassic Park one because it's like the only image I have on this computer. It looks like it worked. Now the problem is we don't. Maybe we can do that next. I don't actually have images being displayed in the detail view, but if we go to our backend, in theory, 8,000 manage. It's gonna be one of these two passwords. And we go to foods and we click on this one here. Oh, image URL did not actually work. Why would that be? Form set. Okay, so let's actually look at the Flutter code here. So set image URL, we do this. Oh, what? No, yeah, that seems correct. What the heck happened then? Let me edit banana. So upload image. Da-da-da. We do get it there at least. Save. Okay, let's open our network tab and see if that's actually coming up. This is why we test stuff. Upload image. So like it does upload the file, which is good. And it downloads again, which makes sense. But I think when we're saving, it's not actually being serialized. And of course, oh, there it is. Okay, get patch. So we have a patch, and let's see the request. Image URL is still blank. I wonder why. So our on change set image URL. Let's see what this does. This goes state.update food, state.copy with image URL value. That all seems right. And then we take the food. Oh, this is overriding it. That's what's happening. Okay, so we need to figure out where that is. Let's search for this. This is probably going to be our best way to find this. And we want to look in this right here. Yeah, this looks like the right thing. Okay, so there's something that's going to be, yeah, the form setters. That's what we're basically looking for here. Wait. Oh, form control setters. Yeah, if is stringish. What the heck is this method? Nice. Stringish. Okay. is stringish will be that. Yeah. If property is stringish and property dot type is not does not equal URL. All right. So basically, let's actually just get rid of this, simulate that we never had that, and let's just test to make sure image uploading is working. All right. So let's go to food, edit, image URL, upload. Oops, I clicked upload again. Oh well. Save. Food is saved. Now let's go back to our database. And there it is. We actually have this stored on the internet. Beautiful. Okay, so yeah, the next thing I want to do, I do think it would be nice if there is an image in here to kind of like show it. And basically how I would want this to work is in our detail, our food detail widget. Oops, I opened up the wrong one. But that's basically what I want. Food detail widget. Where's my food detail widget? What's going on here? Food? What the heck? Widgets. Food detail widget. Like, there it is. And we'd essentially want to do something like this. If food.image URL dot is not empty, we're going to basically do something like this and obviously use food image URL. So just see what that would look like. So there we got our lovely preview. I think that makes sense to have a nice image preview. And then we can also do something with the list tile here, but we'll do one thing at a time. Okay, so this is going to be cool. For those just joining, I'm working, I have a new Flutter Django project starting soon for a client. And I'm just kind of doing some handiwork on my open source project called Houston, which is basically like a full stack meta framework for Flutter, Django, Supabase, all these kinds of things. Code generation, good developer experience, great clean architecture, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I'm just tidying stuff up. I have a bit of a to-do list and also finding things as we go. Yeah, if you stick around or ask in the comments to really like me explain this a little bit more, I will. Please just let me know. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to basically replicate this in our code generator so that things happen. So let's look up our detail. It'd be the detail widget, and this is our template for that, right? UI description. So I think we're gonna have to do something kind of like this, where like we have something that's kind of like, let's do like image preview. I'm kind of making this up as I go. And the image preview itself will get injected in. We basically need to replicate something like this. So if there's an image preview, we basically would want to do this. So if, now this can't be food, but this would be camel case name camel case dot, and then we actually have to use the property name, which would be I think we'll do that with the dot, which is going to be basically what image preview is set to. Or wait, image preview. For now, I am going to, let's just undo this. Okay, I'm just going to actually do image URL hard-coded, but this will be something we want to actually grab. And then we would use the same thing here. and we'll have that hard code. I'm going to figure out how to fix that. Okay, so that's basically what we want. So let's look at UI description stuff here in our blueprint property. Does image get passed through? Yeah, so the UI heading. Sorry, it's been a while since I've visited this sort of thing. Yeah, UI description. I'm actually going to order this a little bit differently. Image preview. Then we want to basically do the same thing here. Image preview equals data equaling true. And what we'll do is we'll go to our food.yaml and we'll actually also say image preview true. So basically telling the system like this field will be our image preview, which can be used for like, various things. I should have an error here. Oh no, right. This is just this is a factory. So it's just setting that based on that data. Okay, great. So now let's look for the next instance of UI description because it'll be kind of similar to this. Okay, that's not actually in here. This would be probably in here. UI description. Okay, so here we would have let's just do a string, a nullable string of image preview. Property dot this, we want to find the first one where p dot image preview equals true. And then we return this UI property formatted. Takes the name dot toString. Okay, I forget what that does. And then we just have to make sure the image preview actually gets passed along. So I'm gonna do it in the same spot, keep everything kind of together. And it's basically gonna be that. Okay, so now that we have that and we've updated that and everything's good, I have a feeling that this will work. Let us just close a whole bunch of things. We're gonna go to our scaffold feature. Sorry, we're gonna go to our CLI.dart. And I'm turning everything to false right now. I only care about the code. And we'll generate Flutter is true. So let's regenerate now. We'll probably get some big error. And what we're looking for is basically, looks like it might have worked. It looks like it did work. So, okay, it did this. Wicked. Now I put it in not really the spot that I originally wanted. But does it really matter? Probably not. Let's go back to our Flutter app. Let's just do a green arrow rebuild because we did some weird stuff there. But it's there. Cool. So let's just take a look at why that didn't go to the right spot, or yeah, it's actually going to minimize this one. It's getting in the way. So we'll go to the Flutter Blueprint Serializer and image preview. And let's actually go to the detail widget. Oh, I mean, simply, I just put it in the order that I wasn't expecting. So I guess we just want it here. Maybe we'll put it here. We'll get rid of some extra spaces. Let's run it again. So we should see that this gets kind of shifted up, I think, above the price. That's exactly what we wanted. Look at that. Hey, FluxTube, question in the chat. Yes, I can. I can tell you what I'm making. Let me just take a look here. Let's just do it. We should be able to do a hot reload now. There it is. So we're gonna have that there. We're gonna have that there. Now let's just do, I just want to do one more thing while we're in the thick of it. I'd love if our sort of like list tiles here actually had a preview of the image in it too. That's pretty common. So let's actually, just do this in our generator. I am going to answer your question very well soon. Okay, list tile widget. So yeah, we basically would want to do something similar to this, image preview. So I'm just going to wrap this. So if there's an image preview, and we'll actually put this one first. Oh, and then we do need to potentially fix one thing. Because if we don't actually call it image URL, it is going to throw an error. But that should be an easy fix, I hope. Okay, so if we have this, we're going to need to have a comma at the end. But basically, we would want to do leading, and it'd be like image.network. And it would, I think it's just the first parameter here. So it's basically whatever we did here. Oh, we also need to make sure it's not empty. So let's put that in because the image could be empty. I think we just want this. We would basically go this and then a question mark. If it's not empty, we're going to have a network image. Otherwise, we're just going to have like a size box. We could even have like a container with a width of like 48, or let's do like 30, 32, height 32, and color colors dot like just like a kind of semi-transparent box. Okay, so we'll do that. Now our image.network, of course, needs basically everything that's in here. And we do still want to do the width of 32, height of 32, and box fit. Box fit, is that what it is? Or is it size? It's hard because I don't actually get all the IntelliSense for this because I'm not actually in a real Dart file. Is it just fit? Oh, fit, yeah, box fit dot cover. Okay, let's see if that works. Hi, fo. DX framework, because that's an easier question to answer it right now. DX means developer experience. So building something that's like really delightful for developers to work with, myself, or anyone else who is going to use this. And then yes, I'm Flux. I haven't forgot about you. We are going to get you an answer very soon. All right, let's go back to our Flutter app. Let's do a green arrow rebuild. In theory, we should have a little preview here. There it is. Look, a little preview. It's fine. Yes. Okay. So we're generating that out. Now the one thing, the problem is, yeah, if we don't use image URL as a thing, we're gonna do that. I have a feeling we can just actually put the dot here. Let's just see. I'm just gonna do it in the one file, and because I think that's what comes back. So let's actually look at the code for this. It is. Yes. Okay, so that's how we do it. We just do a dot here, and then we do have a dot here too, which is probably really confusing, but we're good. Okay, so yeah, what are we building? So I'll tell you a bit about Houston. Houston is my lifelong project, I guess, in some ways. So basically, I've been building software for a long time, mostly web-based stuff, app-based stuff. Before apps, obviously just web-based stuff. And I've come from, doing things 20 years ago in like Flash through PHP, HTML, CSS, all that kind of stuff. Many years ago, I started what I called Houston, which is named after it's technically named after the city Houston, but not because I'm from there or anything, but it is like kind of like Houston, I have a problem, space. I love space stuff. My company name is the Young Astronaut. So it's kind of like a mission control product or program or whatever. What it was originally was my first version of Houston. This is probably like version 7 by now. My very first version, it was a full stack PHP application. This was even before like React and before even iPhones were a thing and stuff. Apps were a thing. So like it was like an application that for making web web software really quickly. Um, and what it did, it was meant for, there'd be a back end and there'd be a front end that the users interact with. The back end was like a fully generated, based on configuration. You would basically say, okay, here's my database structure, here's whatever, and it would generate all the stuff for you. Similar to something like Ruby on Rails or even Django, from a back end point of view, of how it kind of like understands your models and makes the UI, for you. But it would also like do stuff for the front, and it was really just like a starting. It wasn't like you would do the configuration and ship that. It was kind of like, here's all the starting, stuff. And then you can, the developer myself would build off it. And I use this, and React, made it, um, reevaluated it, made it better. I used it on many, many projects. That version of Houston probably shipped. I probably shipped like, maybe a dozen full applications on it over the years, for clients and whatnot, and for some of my own like internal projects. Um, Fast forward quite a bit, after like adapting it and stuff. Kind of PHP no longer became part of my life. I moved forward from it. It was great at its time, but I moved into like, partly doing things in Django on the back end for the most part, as well as experimenting with other things, but also doing things, apps were a thing. So it was like building, front end of apps and stuff. And now it's like more building APIs on the back end because they're not coupled together. They're connected, or they're unconnected. They have to talk through an API, nowadays. Um, and maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, I came across Flutter. No, I don't even I think it's been like maybe 3 or 4 years. And I kind of fell in love with Flutter, so I've been using that a lot. And what I kind of did was like, a few years ago, I was like, okay, I've kind of like used Flutter enough now that I've developed certain patterns and stuff that I like. How can I now make my life easier by not, because I've noticed, it's when you're making an app, let's say like 70% of the work is just all the crud, right? It's like create, read, update, delete about, database records and stuff. So you have your list views, you have your detail views, you have editing stuff, you have deleting things, you have all that kind of stuff. So I came up, a nice pattern to do that, and built, essentially code generation, where I can define a model. And let me, get my desktop shown again. But I can basically, with a YAML file, so the food one is the one we're just playing around with right now. I can say I have this model, that's called food, and this is the shape of it. It has, a name. It has, that's a type of char field with a max length. It has a price. It has an image, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And just based off this single configuration file, I want to actually, generate the code that is just my starting point. So it's a little bit different than like build runner code generation. It's more like what I would call scaffolding code generation, which is like, give me, that 70% of that work that is like really easy to, make errors with copying and pasting, and it's just really tedious and boring and whatnot, and just generate that for me, on the Flutter side, right? So basically, what we were just ran in the CLI was generating this, and we've just kind of been playing by making tweaks to make it better. But it basically generated all this code here, everything inside this food thing. There's, probably, I forget how many files there are, but there's, a couple dozen files or whatever. And it's basically everything that you see from a UI point of view, broken up in nice ways, to have a list view for the food. So this is a list of all the foods that we'd have. There's, a way to add more food. So let's, add apple, test 1, 2, 3, um, calorie 0, sure. So there's Apple, yay. You have the detail view of it. You have a way to edit it, and then you also have a way to delete it. We should probably have a confirmation dialog there, I would think. Uh, and like that sounds simple, that looks simple, but it's really not. Like there's a lot going on behind the scenes, especially like the way the data and validation works. So like, we're using Riverpod and whatnot for state management, and I want to make sure when something new is added or edited or deleted, like the list view, updates accordingly. The detail view gets invalidated, so the next time you come, the updated one is there. So for instance, if I make this banana 1 and come back, the system like does this. So that's kind of like, what this is in a sense. And I will say that I've used a variant of the, Flutter version of Houston, on probably like, 8 or 9 real like production apps, over the last few years. And this version of Houston, which I started this version maybe like a year and a half ago or something, maybe like 2 years ago, I started this new iteration of it, which I'll get into in a minute. Um, I have only one thing actually in production that's using it. One product of mine that I use for it. But I'm about to start another project, and I'm like, I want to. There's some things I want to clean up about it before I like start, because when I made that project, I noticed some things I would have wanted to fix, but I just kind of like just move forward in that. So I'm just kind of like catching it up a bit, and that's basically what we're doing now. The plan is this is an open source project. However, I don't have like documentation or anything yet, so it will be. Um, that is to come. That this is a big goal of mine, is to really like put this out as something that that other people can use. And I mean, I have had other people use this in the past, people that work with me and stuff, so it's not completely just like me only, but it pretty much is. um so yeah, I do want to do that because I think it's really useful. Now, where its real power shines in this version, and Flux, I hope you're still here. This is a very long explanation, but I think it's good. um where we really are in this version is, although Django is my generally preferred backend most of the time, especially for like building things that have, users and all this typical stuff, like whether it's a social media app or whatnot. Um, Although Django is there, and just to mention, I know I'm talking about Flutter a lot, but this generates the Django code too. This actually generates, if we go into, let's just, yeah. So inside Houston Django, it is basically creating the model for us. You'll see we have the model for food. This code got generated too. It created a migration for us. It creating the admin interface for it. And I think most importantly, because this is like the tedious part, it created this whole API module that has, oh, we're supposed to be, yeah, I'm supposed to check something, query sets. Yes, it worked. Okay. It generates the filters, the permissions. Well, it just creates an empty file for that one. The query sets, the serializers, the URLs, and the view. So all this stuff, everything I'm showing is demoing and stuff is actually the back end and the front end, all working. Um, Still here, yes, good. Um, so that being said, it's generating that. Now, what I did in this new iteration, again about 2 years ago, um, we essentially um, added in different backend options, because some people don't want to use Django. They don't want to learn. They just want to work in Dart. So if like all they care about is Dart, they can use Serverpod. So I actually have Serverpod code generation working. Everything's great. Um, uh, which if you don't know Serverbot, it's a really cool project. It's a full stack Flutter framework. It's a lot of focus is on the back end part, but really like it also it has modules and stuff for the front end, and it basically gives you like end to end type safety. Serverbot's cool. I have a lot of videos on it. You can check it out. But we also have a Supabase back end option, which is kind of like Firebase. It's like a back end as a service. It is fully integrated on the Flutter side. Now, it doesn't generate any backend code for Supabase, because Supabase is more about the database in some ways. You can still write code and stuff there, but long story short, we do generate the SQL that you would need for your tables, and it all works. So that's kind of what it is. And yeah, so now I'm just kind of tweaking some stuff. I have a bit of a to-do list, which I minimized, of course. Let me just see. Oh no, wait, I didn't minimize it. It should be in here. To do. This we can mark off as done. This we can mark off as done. And yeah, I'm just kind of working through stuff to get this ready, because I want to basically, like, the way this project works, it's like when I'm ready to start a new thing, I essentially have to fork it, right? Like I'm going to be, starting a new code base using this as like a starting point, and any fixes I do in my upcoming project, I'll either have to kind of like remember to fix here if I want to fix it, or kind of do it at the same time. But the more I can do now before I start this project, the more that then the work I do will be, reusable. That is my story. Okay, I'm going to just take maybe like a few minute break, and we'll get back to stuff right after. So, yeah, please stay around. Ask some questions in the meantime in the chat if you can. Anything, about coding. It doesn't have to just be about Flutter or Django. Like I'm pretty experienced in many facets. It can be about business stuff, like freelancing, like whatever. I can talk all day. But otherwise, if there's no questions when I get back in 5, um, I will just continue working. So yeah, thanks for hanging out, and I will see you guys in a few minutes. All right, I'm back. All right, so I'm just gonna clean some stuff up here. I want to. What is 0? That's fine. Maybe I'll figure out that. Um, I want to just delete some stuff here. Features. I want to delete the whole food module, food feature, which will throw us some errors. So let's go fix those errors because it's going to try and import things that no longer exist. We can get rid of that, get rid of that. That's all. See, features are not like when you design stuff really nicely to have, this sort of feature-based thing. It's really like everything's self-contained, Now there's exceptions to that when features obviously like need to rely on each other and stuff like that, but for the most part, like these things are all self-contained, and then, the router needs a little thing. Also, this should just be ref now. That is a update in Riverpod, so we'll just fix that. Um, cool. And I see a question in the chat. I'll get to that in 1 minute. I just want to finish my process here of deleting things. So Houston Django, we also want to delete the, actually this stuff we can just stash away. So let me just do a git status. I don't want to actually lose something by accident. But really, if we go into the CLI, I can commit this stuff. Everything in the CLI is good to go. What do? We did like image preview and other tweaks. Let's just make sure that, yep. Okay, we'll push those changes. Now, basically, I want to get rid of, I think, everything else in here. Yeah. Although let's commit the to-do as well. So I'll git add, no, git, I almost added all, that would have been annoying. We want to do git add basically the to-do, git commit -m to do updates. We'll push that change. So now I think everything else here I don't really want, right? We're just kind of experimenting. So I would do a git stash, and that will just get rid of any of those changes. But you'll see we still have files because a git stash doesn't get rid of new files because they're not tracked yet. So what we're going to do is now a git clean -fd, F for force, which is just like, instead of prompting me, it's just like a safety thing. And then D, meaning you do like the directories as well, and not just like the root files. So now we should be all back. And just to double check, we'll close all this stuff. We'll refresh. And let's just make sure our app still works. So it does. The only reason there's no image here is because we didn't regenerate the movie one. But if we regenerate it, we would actually have that. Maybe that's actually something worth doing, just to get this up to date. Because I do want it, I do have the movie one part of the code base, just as like an example of what's to come, and also like a reference for me. Okay, let's go to the chat. Let me pull these up. What do we have? All right, Blaze Doodle, thank you for joining. Good to have you here. So you want to enhance your skills in the back end. Could you set up some complex projects or some guidance to start? I'm going to ask you a follow-up question before I jump into it. You're trying to enhance your back end skills. So what does that mean? You are already building stuff in the back end? If so, what language and frameworks do you use? Give me, I'll give you a minute or however long you need. Just give me a little more context there. Although, I see you already did. Probably before I noticed. So currently, Node, but you find it difficult. Yeah. Node is good. I think I talked about this yesterday. It's kind of I like Node in general. I very rarely use it for like web applications from a backend point of view. I actually use Node probably the most for just like workflow and stuff, like, and then for like build steps and stuff. The thing I don't like about Node and like Express and stuff, which is probably what you would be using, is it's not really that opinionated, meaning you're kind of like you're kind of set in the wild west of like, I have to choose I have to make all these right decisions, right? Like what OR am I going to use? What, server am I going to use, what blah blah blah, what package, what data validation, and it's great. It's flexible in that way, which is good in some cases. But I think especially for people trying to learn and get better, not having like that opinions in a framework can be challenging because you're always like second guessing yourself. Oh, I should I use this, and then all your different pieces you kind of have to build the connections between them. Something that's great about like Django and other opinionated frameworks like Ruby on Rails, even like Go to some extent, I find they are pretty opinionated. So there's like a way of doing things. Now you can break those opinions and still do it your own way, but then you're fighting against the framework's conventions, and it's better just usually to follow how it's generally meant to be done. Django is great because it has all the bells and whistles and stuff in it, and not only can you just use pretty much any Python package with it, there are like Django specific packages. Um, in terms of like directly answering your question, I'd say I'll give two possible paths. Um, you know, Maybe learn Django. I think it's, currently you know, and there's not, I'm not a kind of person that's like only use one thing. Like I use Django a lot, but sometimes I use like Firebase. Sometimes I use Serverpod. Sometimes I use just like, I will use like Node from an extent of using something like SvelteKit and have like backend APIs in Node. There are like times and places for different things, but more often than not, at least in the kind of work I like to do, I do find that Django is um, pretty useful and a good um, just I'm very productive in it. I think it's a productive framework when you know it. So maybe learning some stuff about that. I do have two series on my channel about Django. One is called Django. I think it's like Django for beginners or something, and it doesn't have anything to do with making APIs or anything like that. It's really about using Django like with templating and as a full stack framework. You can check that out. There's also one called I think it's called APIs for mobile devs, something like that. You can find it pretty easily. Just they're both playlists, and that one uses Django as well, but it's meant for making an API, which is a lot different than just like making like HTML templates and stuff. You could watch either in either order or just pick one. They don't rely on each other. In fact, I think I made the API one first, and then was like, oh, this is pretty popular, so I did one that was just more like full stack Django. Um, so that's one path is like finding something new. Now, if you haven't done Python before, um, I wouldn't be too worried. A lot of the same principles apply. Python and they're all C, Python, JavaScript, even Dart. They're all like C-based languages, meaning they're pretty similar. The syntax is a little bit different. Obviously, Python uses indentation base instead of like curly braces, and there's no semicolons and stuff. Ternary functions are different. A lot of things are different, but it's pretty easy. And something that's great about Python and most languages is you can use tools like ChatGPT to help guide you and fix your things and stuff. But don't just rely on that because you're not gonna completely learn. Um, so that's like one path, like learning something new like that. And then second path, which could also be tied into the first path, is yeah, you wanted maybe something to challenge yourself with, something to learn something new with. Um, I mean, yeah, like to me, the most the most common thing in any application is CRUD, right? And maybe you're already familiar with this, but kind of what we've been working on here is beyond the scope of CRUD because we're actually building like a meta layer on top of CRUD of generating the stuff for CRUD. But and CRUD means create, read, update, and delete, which is mostly the operations you're ever going to do. So what I like to do, and a lot of my tutorials are this, is like pick a topic you like, something you're interested in. It could be board games, it could be video games, it could be movies, it could be whatever, and make something that allows just like just think of it as like a single user at first. It's a tool to do that, and it could be API driven or it could just be full stack. Whether it's Django or Flask or whatever. Do something like that for managing your thing. And it's a little bit. I feel like that's like a better application than doing a to-do list. Like to-do list is kind of like the go-to like learning something, but to-do lists are pretty boring and overdone. So that's like one thing. And the second phase of that project could be like, okay, now I'm going to think about this as if this was like an app or a website for multiple users, right? And instead of it just being like a single database table of things, you now have like a user associated with each, so that now I only see my movies as an example, and other people see theirs, and that kind of stuff. And you can take that further by then, adding likes and stuff, and then having other models like, commenting and really just like build something that's that. But I think what's important is like, if you don't care about movies, like don't make the topic movies. Like find a topic you like, right? And go there. So that's what I would kind of say. Um, and then yeah, to your next question here is kind of like, what was my journey? My journey was really just building stuff. I started coding, well, really like I started coding when I was like really young, like probably like 7 or 8 years old, like just fiddling with stuff on my computer and whatever. Um, and I was just always interested in doing that stuff. In terms of professionally, maybe like 16 or 17 years ago is when I actually started like being like, I'm gonna charge people for this kind of thing. And honestly, it's like I kind of just learned as I went, because I do think the best way to learn something is just to build stuff, right? And think of a problem. Oh, I have to build this app. Like that's a massive undertaking, right? If you were just like, today I have to build an app, it would be super overwhelming. It's like there's so many things, right? But if you think of it, break it into small pieces. And some advice I heard recently is like, if you are overwhelmed by something, think about it this way: like, what is this? Say you're overwhelmed and you're procrastinating and stuff like that, 'cause you're just like, I can't do this. Like, think that just really means like the problem that you're trying to solve is too big. And I don't mean like abandon all hope, don't even do this. I mean the specific problem, which in this case could be like, I want to make authentication for my app. Like, but I can't start that, it's like way too scary. It just means all that really means is like you've set yourself up with a problem that's too big. So what do? Oh, I need to make that problem smaller, right? So my problem now is no, I don't have to make authentication. I need to make the ability to have login or something like that, or I need a user model, and it doesn't have to have any functionality yet. I'm going to do that first. And if you're still overwhelmed and stuff, then it means the problem's still too big, and you got to think, how can I break this up just even a little bit smaller? So, oh, I'm gonna like, create a diagram of like what the user looks like, right? And what you'll find 9 times out of 10 is you get to that point where you're no longer overwhelmed and you do that. And then you kind of have a little more energy and you go, hey, I'm gonna now break this up, or I'm gonna now go to that next piece, right? And that's just kind of how building software, or really anything creative is, right? You're breaking up into small things, and you're kind of like, you might get frustrated and annoyed and be let down, but you're going to solve it. You're going to solve that one tiny thing, and it's going to motivate you to, do the next thing. So break things up, and just one step at a time. So yeah, my journey was really just that over the years. Like, I would get jobs from clients, not, at least 50% of the time it was like I didn't know how to do that, but I said yes, and I would figure it out, right? And that's just kind of been, my mentality to keep doing stuff. And I will say with that note, like every single project I take on, um, I always like make sure there's something in it that is new to me in some way. And whether it's like a requirement of the client or the project that I've never done this, instant message chat or something as an example. Um, um, Again, sorry, I have to take this call. 1 second, I'll be RB. I'm back. Um, so yeah, what I was saying is I always, yeah, when a new project comes up, I always like want to make sure there's something in it that's new, that so I can learn something from it too. I don't want to just be like a code monkey. And sometimes that comes in the requirement of the project, like, a direct message thing or, whatever, a blockchain integration, let's say, or I make it myself. And by making it myself, I mean, I'm going to, I would normally do something this way, but I've heard about this other technique and I'm going to try that, whether that's like, clean architecture or using this. Now, I always also try and make sure on a project that um, if I'm going to do something different that I haven't done before, I usually just pick one thing to change. Because if you try and change too many things, like I'm going to use this ORM instead, I'm going to use this data validation thing instead. Now you're kind of spreading yourself pretty thin, right? You're like trying to learn all this stuff, and you don't really, know how they all work together. Versus if I have, let's say, there's two projects in the future, I decide I'm going to do a new ORM here. Yeah, I liked it. Cool. Next project comes up, I'm going to now do a new data validation thing. But I'm familiar with the ORM, so I'm not, getting confused about that and spread too thin. So that's all my advice to do with that. And yeah, and I see, yeah, you lost a fire inside of you. That is easy to happen. It's really easy to lose. I find development, it can be, depressing at times. Like, you can really like feel like you're doing like boring stuff or that you're like beating yourself up a lot, right? um, one moment. Let me mute. Okay. Um, Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to do that, and if you're working at like a 9 to 5 agency, that's very like you're just kind of like doing WordPress templates or something, React forms or whatever. Like, yeah, I think in those cases, having like sort of a side thing to do can be inspiring. But like, it's hard. It's hard to have the energy, right, to do things. So what I've been really trying to do recently, is find ways that like when I'm working on one thing, I feel like I'm working on two things. And that's where like, doing something that's interesting, right? Like as like an example, I'm aside from doing software and stuff, I like writing I'll say I like writing screenplays. I've only written like a couple, but I like, that kind of stuff. And what I've kind of done recently on a project, this is like one example, is I was like, I'm going to build something for, having like a place to share my script that's like kind of like a cool like landing experience. So when I made that, it's like, cool, I'm kind of doing something that's, I'm interested in. It has tech. It's interesting because it's like to do with like other types of my work, and so it kind of feels like I'm putting X amount of energy in, but getting like 2X results. So that's like another side tip of something. And I have like other examples of that too if you're curious. Um, yeah, company placement. Yeah. So I think what I was kind of getting at is like it is hard to if you have like a 9 to 5 thing to then be like, oh, and then I'm going to come home and code. That can be challenging. So that's why I'm saying like find a way that for that precious time of yours to kind of like do things, but also make sure you enjoy your life outside of your work. Coding can be fun and stuff, but if it's like all you're doing, it and it feels like a job, like that's where you need to kind of like take a step back and make sure you're doing other things. Cool. And what else do we have? Okay, so Blaze, I hope that answered a bunch of your stuff. Feel free to ask some follow-ups. And then we have Ammon Coding here. What would you use as a backend for a cross-platform app, apart from Serverpod? I would use Django, as you could probably guess. Again, it really depends. I would also probably use Supabase depending on what is being made. I think Supabase is really great. I probably wouldn't use Firebase unless it was like just kind of made sense. Like Firebase is all right, but I just have qualms with it, and it's a really like vendor lock-in thing. Supabase kind of is a vendor lock-in, but technically you can self-host it, so you're not fully like stuck. And also, it's a Postgres database. Everything's really like open source about it. So like if Supabase, all of a sudden was like, it now costs $1 million, like you can still like, do. So yeah, I'd say the Supabase or Django for me. Again, depends on what you're trying to do. I think Django really shines when, when there's users. Like, there's some apps that don't even need a backend, right? Or there's some apps where like there's nothing that social about it. And I don't just mean like social network is, but the idea of like seeing the persona of other users on the site, whether it's through their comments, whether it's through their profiles, even if it's not like a social network. And I find Django really shines with that kind of stuff, and it really just shines with so many things, that I could list for days. So yeah, that's what I would use. I've used many things for app backends. I've used Laravel and PHP stuff. I've used Rails in the past. I've used Node.js. Sometimes I've used Flask. I've used Fast API. But there's nothing in my world that I like more than Django. For again, for the right purpose. Like I really just need to emphasize that, like, just because you have a favorite thing, like even Flutter, like I like using Flutter a lot, but I don't use it on everything. I do also use like SvelteKit quite a bit because Flutter is not always the best solution for things. It's very good for apps. Generally won't go to like Swift or like Java for apps anymore. I will use Flutter, and when I say apps, I mean like native, iOS, Android, even desktop. I find Flutter is great for desktop, and sometimes it's great for web too. I use it a lot for web, but only for things that it makes sense to use for web, um, because things like SvelteKit and whatnot are a lot of the time, if you're just building a web app, probably like a better approach. And definitely if you're building like a landing site for your app, and I see this all the time on Reddit, people are posting my portfolio site, or like I made this Flutter app and they also build their landing site in Flutter. It's like, don't do that. Like that's not what Flutter's for. Flutter's for. Flutter's not for websites. It doesn't render HTML. It renders a canvas. It's a game engine. Like I say this all the time. Like you have to think of Flutter from a technical point of view as a render game engine. Everything about it that feels like a website, whether it's buttons or scroll bars, that is all fake. That is all just like part of this render engine. Flutter owns that canvas and just gives you 60 frames a second of pixels. It's very different than how a browser works. So it's different with accessibility. It's different with SEO, obviously. It's different with performance because unless you set up a really complicated distributed code base, the whole app has to like download, right? So if it's like really big, and all you're doing is you bring someone to like a thing to get their attention and they have to wait 10 seconds for it to load, like you've lost them. So I, for instance, have a project, very big project client of mine that is like in the music and business industry, whatever sort of stuff. And although the core of it is Flutter on the front end and Django actually on the back end, we've been slowly taking pieces of it and rebuilding those pieces in SvelteKit that are really important to have web, SEO, accessibility, tracking of like analytics and tracking of, um, like pixel tracking for like marketing campaigns and stuff. So we've actually taken recently, just a couple weeks ago, we released our auth package, which is a SvelteKit application that runs completely outside of Flutter. It runs actually on a totally different server. It just runs on Vercel, whereas our Flutter app runs with an S3, because it's really just like serving static content. They both use the same backend, but it's a SvelteKit application, and it basically does everything for logging in, registering, billing stuff. It does everything for the like password reset, all that. And then when you do log in, it basically communicates to the Flutter app by a specific URL to pass over like the auth token stuff, and then Flutter on that domain takes over. And we've done similar things with that project for the share pages. So when you're sharing like content within the app, it's sharing it to the link that you're getting is actually being served by a separate SvelteKit application, because with that you get the better SEO, the better previews and stuff like that, faster loading because it doesn't have to load the whole Flutter app. So this is just to say, like, really like, just because you really like a certain technology, it doesn't mean it should always be what you go to. And one more note on this, like I had a project, had a client, a freelance opportunity. I guess it's coming up on a year now, or at least like 9 months ago, And I was hired as a Flutter dev, because he knew I knew Flutter and he wanted to make an app. And when I got the requirements for the project and the idea and stuff, I was like, this, could be an app in the future, but really this should be a website. Like this should be a web application. And we actually built it fully in Django full stack, like not Django with an API with like React in the front. It was just Django full stack. It was a great, great experience. And like that's just something to like think about. Um, Any chance if you're on X or LinkedIn? I mean, I'm technically on LinkedIn. I'm technically on X. Do I use them that much? Not really. You can just search for Tyler Savory there. Also, tylersavory.com would be my website. If you go to that, let me pull her up. So tylersavery.com. You can go and see some. You can get to my GitHub. You can get to my YouTube. I imagine you already know where my YouTube is. It's probably very a click away for you right now. / you're on it. You can email me, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Twitter, I think it's just like I basically have like the Tyler Savory handle on like all things. So LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, I'm that. Yeah. So find me and add me, and maybe I'm not that active on them. I'm active on Reddit, so that's a good place to look if you like Reddit. Okay. Um, what other questions we have in the chat? Hi Manuel. Hi Tech Gyathi. Great. Thanks for the questions, guys. We're going to, I think, keep working now until more things come up. So that was a nice little coding break for me, and hopefully some good advice in there. Let's go to our to-do list. I'm going to minimize this one again. To-do. Yeah, sending emails. I think we should do the resending of verification codes next, because that'll be super fun. We'll start on the back end for this guy. So I am actually going to minimize this one and pull up this one. You might notice I have different colors. I'm using a plugin, a VS Code extension called Peacock. And it allows you to basically like in your project set different colors. That way when you're working kind of like I do a lot in like 2 different code bases at the same time, you can just like very quickly know, okay, this one happens to be the Flutter one and this is like the Django one, just based on the colors. So let's figure this out. API auth. So we're doing the email URLs, email confirm. So confirm, is this where we send? No, the confirm happens, or so we send an email, although the email is not set up. We print to the console on the registration serializer, or what would it be, auth serializers? Yeah, so right here we have a to-do, we print out the email confirmation code, but really we're going to send that in an email. However, there'll be cases we want this to be resent. So I feel like this is related to email, so we'll put it in there. We do have this OTP folder that actually I'm probably going to be getting rid of. OTP email, because we're kind of like I'm actually like kind of rebuilding this in a simple way, in a simpler way, because I find this is just like overkill. Maybe I'll keep it for now, but I might delete the OTP thing. All right. I'm gonna see if I can open up my to-do easily. No. Before I forget it, I'm gonna put this in here. Remove Django OTP. Okay, so confirm email view. Let's just put something like this here. Class resend email confirmation code, or verification code, I think. This will be a generic API view. We're going to allow anyone, because technically you're not going to be authed when you're asking for this generally. Otherwise, like, why are you asking for it? And we might be able to use the same serializer. Let's see. No, we want we'll just make a new one. I'm going to do it just after this. Resend resend email verification serializer. So all we care about is an email address for this. All right. And yeah, all we really have to do here is this will be a post request. I'm literally just going to copy all this stuff. It's basically the same thing. And then we're going to try and get a user, try to get user, except user.does not exist. I talked about this yesterday, and maybe it's worth mentioning now. And where do we do this? This is on the password reset, recover. There might actually be a better place to do this. No, it's fine. So what we're going to do is actually return a response here. And it's actually going to be a successful response. And the reason we are doing that is we don't want people to hit this API and be able to know like if that user exists in our system. It's just an easy way to kind of like, fish things. So actually we don't want that. So we're just looking for a user with that email. And if they don't exist, like we just go, hey, success 204, all is good. Otherwise we, go and send the email. So let's go to our registration or serializers for API auth. Serializers for auth. This one right here. So what we would do here is, again, print the user confirmation code, and I'm going to keep that to do. And we're going to, maybe next I'll actually get email working, and then we can get rid of these to-dos. Okay, so what we want to do now is just print that off and basically, send the same response. So this will be a to-do. This will actually go in asynchronously, send an email, which is always fun. All right, cool. Now for this to actually work, we need to add it as a URL on auth email and resend, or let's just do send confirmation or verification code, and then that should just work. Okay, so that's going to work on the back end, I'm quite sure. Basically, we hit this endpoint with our, oh, we did miss one thing. We need to make sure that we're using this as our serializer. Let's import that guy, and we're good there. Okay, so this should work on the back end, no problem. On the front end now, let's go to our, this is part of auth, which is a feature. And we want to make sure that our, on our, be in domain, data sources, auth data source. So we're going to have a future of void, which is going to be, send, resend email confirmation or verification code, which is going to be very similar to this. So this is an abstract class. This doesn't have our code or implementation. This is just saying like our code needs to conform to this. So you see we now have errors. We're going to go to the Serverpod one, which we're actually just going to keep as unimplemented. We are also going to go to the Supabase one and keep it as unimplemented because we'll have to implement those in the future. But I'm really just focused on the Django stuff right now because that's what I'll be using for my next project. And then we need to also have it here, but we don't want to keep it unimplemented. We actually want to do the implementation. So for this, we basically want to wrap this into try catch. That's basically what we do on all of our data source. Anything that has networking involved, that something could go wrong, a million things could go wrong, right? We want to make sure this is async so we can await stuff. And we just want to go auth / email / let's just take a look at this again. Minimize that. There you go. Auth / email / send verification code. Auth / email / send verification code. And we pass the email. Cool. And all we need to really do is await this. We don't really care about the response. We know the response is just going to be empty anyways. And if there is an error, we're just going to throw an exception here. Cool. So this should work in that case. So that's just our data source layer. Now there is also the repository layer that works a little bit differently. auth repository. So similar, the main difference here is you'll notice this is kind of a nice pattern. So this is basically like saying, hey, this is going to return a user, a future user, um, every single time. Now, that's not actually the case. Something could go wrong in here, right? We actually could, something goes wrong. We have a Serverpod session and we actually, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong auth data source, future user. Wait, how come when I clicked on this, complete roster reset? Um, that is not actually the right thing there. Let me just explain this. So let's just go to auth data source implement auth data source Django. So you'll see when we actually look at, I guess I just found like a random thing, future user, right? So this is saying hey, it's implementing this. It needs to have the same shape. It's going to return a future user. But if something goes wrong, we actually just throw an exception. So the function doesn't actually return, so we can still map to that. And the idea is the next layer down, our repository layer, handles those two cases. Either like it worked perfectly well, or it didn't work, and we have an exception, and now we're going to do something, handle it a little bit differently. What this means is, rather than returning like a nullable user, which is always that annoying further down the stack to, always have like null checks and stuff, we can know if the error wasn't thrown, like this is a proper user. So that's just kind of like the pattern here, and partly why I really like the clean architecture. Okay, but back to the task at hand, auth data source. So we have the data source, but we need to go to our auth repository too. And similarly, the difference here is in our repository, this is where we're not going to throw an error. We're going to return one of two things. And that's where we can use something called fp-dart for essentially saying, hey, this is either going to return a failure or it's going to return void in our case, which this obviously isn't the best example because void you don't do anything with, but you should see it. And then we need to still have basically the same. We don't have to have the same one, but I like to keep them the same. So now we have this set up, and now we're going to see that there's an error. It's saying, hey, this class, doesn't have this. So we can, of course, add this, missing override. And here, we will basically, do we have a, yeah. So now we also wrap in a try catch, because this is going to, what we're going to be doing here is basically getting, we're going to go await, and we're going to take our data source. Oops, we need to make this async. Pet peeve of mine that doesn't auto happen. And we want to go data source dot, and here we want to basically have our data source version of the resend verification code, which is what we set up over there. And if something goes wrong, so if an error is thrown, we're going to return something different. In this case, if all this goes well, we just want to return right, and in this case, null. We're not actually returning anything, any data. We're just saying like, hey, this one went, and it's right because this is the right one. And then otherwise, we want to return left, which is going to have an e here, and I think we just do we return a failure, and we just take e.message. Oh yeah, we do on server exception. Catch that, and then e.message, which is actually something I need to tidy up about this. There's some weird thing that's happening, but it doesn't matter right now. Okay, cool. So basically now we have the data source layer for specifically Django. We have the auth repository implementation, which works, doesn't matter what the data source is, it should work with all three if the data source is set up. And now we need to actually have this do stuff in the UI. So actually, we might go one more layer down. So we also have an auth provider, I think it is. Yeah. So I'm actually going to call it, I'm going to set this up in the provider. We're going to use the exact same sort of thing here, which will just be a future void, resend email verification, and required string email, async. And here what we would do is we go final result equals await, font size. I can make it a bit bigger. I think I have this one. Yeah, this one's a little bigger. Ref.read, we want to read our auth repository provider, so that second layer there. And now we will call the we call I call them the same thing, so it's just easy to, basically do this. And now we pass through that same email. Okay. Now you'll see, what is this result? Well, this is not a failure or a void, it's an either. So in this case, we can go result.fold and basically handle both cases. On left, we know it's a failure and we're going to do something with that. We'll do something in a moment. On right, we are good. So on right, in this case, this is just nothing. Like you'll see, this is actually null or void. Yeah, it's void. So we don't have to do anything with that, but we know it was a success. And we could like show a toast here or something, right? Now, I'm actually going to make this, um, everything went right. Let's return a result. Fold, and maybe I want to return true. And we will make this a bool. And we'll return false in this case. So basically, like our caller will be able to know after awaiting this, either true or false will come back to them, which is easier to work with from the UI point of view. There are cases, and actually this probably is a case where it might make sense to use this pattern right in our UI. But this just kind of makes it even easier in the UI. It's just dealing with the Boolean. We don't have to do any folds or anything like that. Okay, so we have that now. So now we actually have to go to our this would be on we have a screen for this or a form for this. It is the screen, actually forms, widgets. So this would be the verification form. So our verification form, I think, yeah, here it is. To do, implement verification code. So there's just a little button here. Didn't receive a code, resend it. Okay, cool. So now we would basically just talk to our auth provider, ref.read auth provider. Do I use the notifier here? Yeah, notifier dot resend password reset. Now the problem is we need their email. So we can, essentially show it in a form, whatever. I think though we know it at this point, right? I think we do because our auth verification required. Yes, we do. We know their email. So we can actually just pass that in. State.email. Beautiful. So what we could do now is make this async and we can say, await, and we could call this success, right? Because this will be a Boolean. That's what's coming back from our auth provider here. And, we can say if success, what? Oh, void success. Oh, what? Am I using the wrong thing? Oh, because this should be resend email verification code. I put the wrong one. So this is now a bool, which is what we want. And we can actually do, I think I have some stuff for toast, right? Yeah, toast.message. So basically now I can say toast.message and just say, um, um, verification code sent, else verification code. We can say, I think, do I have an error? How does my toast work again? We just have message. I'm going to actually set up another one here, toast.error. So this would be toast.error, and we could just say like a problem occurred. We have no idea what the problem is. Sorry, guys. If we really did, we could, make this better, but I don't even know what. Probably like your internet's, not working would probably be the most likely thing that went wrong. Now we do have this warning here, and it's because context technically might not be mounted at this point because there's an await here, right? Like imagine you click this button and this took like 5 seconds, and in that time you click the back button, we would have an error. So we can actually just go if context.mounted. We then wrap this all in here, and basically the worst case scenario is they won't get a toast message instead of the app crashing. All right. Let's see if this will work. Oh, let's also make our error bar look differently. So for the error one, we will make the background color, maybe like colors.red. Actually, do we have theme.ofcontext.color scheme.danger? Yeah, we'll use our danger color scheme. And our foreground color, we would actually just put in the text style, colors.white. And let me just check one thing. So this could be a const, but the theme itself, do we have, oh yeah. So we can actually use, I'm actually going to use danger button BG here. And we're actually going to not make this a const. I'm just doing this so that if we ever changed our colors, maybe we wanted danger to be yellow, a bright yellow. It's like white wouldn't look good on this. But we have this cool way to be like danger button FG, which in our case will be white. Oops. There we go. Okay, cool. We have a new feature here. Ability to send errors now. It's just a different presentation of it. So let's test this out then. I'm gonna rebuild just for fun. And let's go here and let's log out. And we're going to actually create a new account. I'm going to just actually delete this user because it's just easier. I have like the user pre-filled. Hey, how come the usernames are allowed to be the same? That's probably something we should fix. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna make a quick note that we should probably fix minor tasks. Let's call this a medium task. Unique usernames, Django, and we should probably also have a username validation API stuff so that we can basically be like, when someone types a username for registration, we can be like, does this person exist? Cool. All right, wicked. Actually, before I forget, minimize this. Okay, so now I think we can test this out. Let's just, I deleted that user, so we should be able to create them. Oops, I just logged in. Let's sign up. We're going to go register, and this should bring us to the confirm email. Now, this is where an email would be sent to me that I'd have to check, but like I mentioned before, we're just printing it out to our console. So if I open up Docker to the web server, I'll see this code here. And oh, well, what we're testing is if the resend will work. So let's click resend. A problem occurred. Oh, there's an issue with our backend. Oh, this should be, I don't know how I did that. Status dot HTTP 204 no content is actually what this should be. Hey, we'll let that restart. We're good. Let's click this again. Verification code sent, and you'll see I got the code again here, and it should be the exact same code because it's a property of the user. Yay. Awesome. I think we're good there. So I would have got that code. Cool. It resent. I'm going to verify, and everything's good. All right. Resend is working in that case. Yeah, I think that's good. We could technically have a resend on the password reset as well. Let's see how that works. We have the forgot password. Let's do tyler@savory.com. So there's actually a different account. It'll be a different code. So I got that code. Yeah, maybe we can do something like that because it'll actually be really easy to do. Check your email. We need to turn off case sensitivity. So this would be on the complete password reset form. And maybe we'll just actually take that same widget essentially. We have this like didn't get a code. Yeah, we'll grab all of this stuff and we'll just put this underneath the form. Is this before the submit button? No, it's after. So we'll just basically put this here. And then verification code, didn't receive a code, verification code sent. Look, that was really easy because it's the same freaking method. All right, awesome. All right, let's commit some stuff because I think that's pretty good. We need to go to my main. So I have a VS Code that has all of Houston open in it. Has a CLI, it has the client, has the Django, has the Flutter, has the server, Supabase, all 5 pieces. But it's annoying to work in this because when you're searching for something, it's going to be like searching all of these things. But I need to have it, I like to have it open so that I can have the notes here and we can commit stuff. Let's also mark something off. Resend verification code. Awesome. We are now committed. Sending emails. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what I want to do next. We could just get email sending set up. In fact, yeah, maybe we should do that. We're going to set this up in a way where we kind of have like an email debug mode that kind of is what we're doing now, but centralized to one spot. So basically, like we can I can work and actually trigger like sending an email and all that stuff. But really, what it will do if it's configured that way is it will just print out the email to our console again. That way, I can then once I add like I'll set up resend or send grid or something, but probably resend. I like resend. Um, just through SMTP, it's fine. Then we can just flip that and everything will work. So we probably already have a lot of this stuff. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's just see the current state. So this would be part of Connect, I think. Sorry, Connect email. So we have an email client. Yeah, email enabled. I'm just going to go to my .env, which doesn't have anything sensitive in it. Okay, yeah, email enabled. Is the default for that true? Oh, default is false. Oh, so this wouldn't work anyways. Cool. So let's actually add a new um, email 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 debug mode. Let's just call it. Default will be false. So I'm going to add this to the .env file. We're going to say email debug mode equals true in this case, and let's actually just set email enabled to false. And I'm just going to go to put this in our example as well. Email debug mode, email enabled false. Okay. Email enabled. Oh, I forgot this one thing. Email debug mode. Okay. The reason for this, and I made an environment change, so I'm going to just do I'm sorry, do I have to restart the whole thing? I don't think so. Just the web server. And technically, we also need to restart Celery in this case. So basically our two app servers. Can I restart this from here? Restart. There it is. Restart that, and we'll restart web. This will just let it pick up the new environment variables in the env file because that just loads at startup time. So what we should do is say if settings dot email settings dot email debug mode we're basically not going to call any of this code, and instead we're just going to like print something to our console basically. Close this. Print. I'll do like email debug mode enabled, and then we can like print something like, I'm just gonna make this up as I go. Star. No emails will be sent. And then we'll just kind of print like a bit of this. I'm gonna make this look real good. Now there's a way in Python you can do this kind of automatically. I just forgot how to do it and I don't care right now. I want these to line up though, so we'll just do this because it's a monospace font, and usually your terminal is gonna be monospace, so it actually will kind of look like that. So we have this little warning thing, and then what we really want to do is print out the different pieces of it. So subject, And I'll just use f strings for this. Subject. And actually, let's get the recipients here. That way we already have that done because that's fine. And this is just a cool way where like technically you can pass in a string or a list here. And it'll basically be like, if it is a string, we're going to make it into a list or really an immutable list, which is called a tuple. So that we always have it as a list, but it just makes it more flexible. Like I can pass in a list of emails or I can pass in a single just string of an email and it will always become a list by the end, essentially. Um, And let's actually do all this stuff here too. And what this does, doing a set list, so basically we're converting recipients to a set, and that basically gets rid of duplications, assuming it's the objects inside are the same type, and then it goes back to a list. So it's basically just a quick way to be like, we don't want to send the email twice to the same person. It doesn't make sense. So we're gonna do that, and we're also gonna go like this. We're putting all this stuff here. And so if for some reason no recipients are passed in, we're just going to return out, like if this is less than one. And I should probably print something just for now. No email, no recipients to send email to. Okay, so email debug mode. Now we can do that. We can do print f string. Maybe I'll make this a little bit better. Subject, let's print recipients here. So let's do this, capital R. And in this case, there could again be multiple, so we would just do recipients dot, or actually, it's a little bit, this is one of the differences in Python. We actually do comma dot join, and then this. This is kind of like in JavaScript, you would do recipients dot join and then pass in the join parameter. In Python, it's actually like, okay, here's the thing you want to join with. It's a string operation, and then we're going to call join on that and pass in the list of things. So just kind of the opposite. It's all good. Um, Recipients, cool. And then we should probably also print out the from, just so that we have that in our debug, from email, and print out the body. And I'm going to do just body like this and actually go to a new line. We could do it that way. We could actually, let's just keep this a little bit nicer. We'll do a /n/n, which will basically make it go to 2. It'll print like an empty line or print a new line character to bring you down 1 and then actually have a space. And then at the very end of this, let's print out, this stuff here. Okay. So let's just test this out. I can just go make shell, which will load up my shell, and Python manage.py. Oops. Sorry, I'm already in the shell. I don't want to do that. So we're going to go from connect.email.client import send email. And now I'm just going to call it send email. And we need the subject, first of all, test subject. The body is going to be hello world. And the recipients, we'll just do, one person, Tyler at, doesn't really matter. This isn't actually going to send in theory. And we'll just use the default email from. So we won't actually pass that one in. Oh, what? Did I call this the wrong way? Send email, subject, body, recipients. What? Where did this line happen? What's going on? If length of recipient, oh, what the heck? That's just an error. We should be saying if length of recipients less than 1. Now, in order to fix this, because we were running the shell uses the current, it doesn't like hot reload or anything, so we actually have to quit and go back into it again. But we do get we can click up to basically run these things again. There we go. So yeah, email debug mode enabled, no emails will be sent. And then we actually get here. So this is nicer to work with. And basically now where we have all of those to-dos, we can, work with this better. Now we're going to take this one step further. We have tasks. So send OTP email. Let me just make sure this isn't being used anywhere else. It is. Oh, because we still have those views. So that's fine. We can keep it for now. But we're going to make an app.task. And what tasks are background tasks. So it's something that we can basically be like, hey, Django, you need to do this operation. And, we don't want to wait around to give our user like a success message. We're just going to assume it's going to work. It's got me in the background. It's good for sending emails. It's really good for like complex things. And it runs in Celery, which is basically like a worker that's going to be running, listening to a queue of tasks and executing them as they come in. So we'll have, we're going to basically make a task to send the user verification. Send user verification code email. And we're going to kind of do the same thing that's happening here. So with like Celery, you usually want to just pass in like very limited info. You can serialize stuff, but generally you just want to like pass in the reference that you really need. In this case, the lowest thing is probably just a primary key of the user ID. And basically we're going to grab this too. And we can basically have a try, accept user dot does not exist, and basically just return out if that user doesn't exist. We don't care anymore. They must have deleted their account. And yeah, now here what we do is we actually have our subjects and stuff like that. So I'm going to it's very similar. So we're going to have our subject, which is, verification code, sure. Here's your verification code. And in this case, we want to use the user dot email. Let's just see what we call this thing. What? Oh, God. This was a new thing we added yesterday. Email confirmation code. So maybe we'll actually call this send email confirmation code. Fine. So that's what we're going to send. I'm also just going to fix this where we're just going to import in user right here. And then we get the better IntelliSense, right? Now it knows that user is a user and all that stuff, although it's still not great. VS Code is pretty good for Python or for Django and stuff. Honestly, PyCharm is better if you're paying for the pro one for getting like all the Django goodies and stuff, but it's heavier and it costs money. And I really like VS Code. So there's little things you got to deal with because sometimes it's like, it knows it's a user here, but it doesn't really know it's a user here. It does, but then it doesn't give me my like click through of this. It's weird. Oh, that's why I didn't get my click through. Sorry. In this case, we should be fine. Yeah, there we go. Click through. Yay. So yeah, we're good there. And then yeah, body, we can actually, let's just grab all this stuff. Context, build context. This we'd also want to use the user confirmation code. And yeah, body equals, oh, we have body twice. That makes sense. Don't worry, this will all make sense soon. And then we're going to, send the email to them. Now, the one thing I want to change is let's open up the OTP email user. Here's your one-time code, or here's your code. I'm going to make a new one because I am going to be getting rid of the OTP thing. We're kind of rebuilding it in just a slightly different way for some reason. So let's just go to templates here, and we're going to just make a new one called confirmation code.html, or we'll call it email confirmation code. And all that's good. And then we just change this to say email confirmation code. Okay, great. And then let's just look at this again, sending all body recipients and the from email. So now this will use that same thing. Now, how do we actually do this? Well, let's just search for our to-dos. Hey, our only to-dos in the Django side are the same thing. So what we would do now is import this. And instead of just executing it by passing in the user ID, we're going to go apply async. And what that means is it's going to happen as a background task. And we're just going to pass user.id or user.pk, either would work. Let's just do pk. So this won't hold up the response. Like basically it's very minimal, just gonna add this to the queue, and then it's gonna still, do what it would normally do. So we need this now 3 times. And we need to import that. Sometimes the auto import doesn't work, especially if you have like some weird error. Darn. Okay, we'll just go back here and we will import it correctly. Okay, and then what the heck's happening here? And then similarly, in the last one, oh, I should probably get rid of, oh, I do have that one. I just, I didn't get rid of the to do. Okay, then this one here, same thing. We got to import this, but of course, the auto import is not working today for us. I put it anywhere, it's fine. Okay, so now let's test this out. So now we should, we're just gonna close this shell or whatever. I'm just gonna restart everything, make restart, because Celery needs to restart and the web service needs to potentially restart. Actually, the web one won't, but something to keep in mind, similar to, so with, if you're using Celery, unless you set it up with like some kind of reloading thing, if you make changes and you have an app.task that's being applied async and you haven't restarted your Celery service, it'll still be using the old code. It basically like boots up and kind of like how the shell, you know, when you start a shell, it doesn't react to the changes. So just keep that in mind. Okay, let's test it out. So now, where can we do this? Multiple places. In fact, I should be able to just click this here, right? So I'm going to click resend here. And we got a problem occurred. What is the problem? Is our service not running? So let's look at our web service. Okay, we do have a problem here. And yeah, I made a total noob mistake because I was talking as I was going. Sorry, we don't pass in user PK like this. We actually have to pass in args like this. So we're basically passing in a list of all the arguments in the order that they would be. In this case, that. So let's just fix the other ones. Where does this actually happen? Here, what did I copy? We just want all this. And in this one too. Apply async. Yeah. Okay. So we'll restart that. Now, technically, we only need the web service to restart because this code isn't in the asynchronous path. It's just the stuff that's actually the task. So that will happen automatically because of the Django reloader. I just want to make sure that we are doing this in all cases. Let's just search for all of our things. Yeah, args, args, args. Okay, so let's test this again and click resend. So now it's been sent. So if we look at our Docker here, you're going to see in the web service, I don't see anything here because it actually, this wasn't executed in the web service. It was executed in the Celery service. So we go here, we're going to see that, you know, hi, whatever, because this person doesn't have a first name. Here's your one-time code. And it looks like that the code is not in there. So let's figure out why that happened. So let's just go to this thing here, data code. Okay, build context. What does this do again? Grabs all that stuff, grabs that. Yeah, it should, what? Build context. Oh, it should actually be data.code because it's data.code. Okay, now in this case, we do have to restart Celery because it's going to be, it still is going to have the old version of that template in memory. Just a common gotcha. So we'll just restart Celery. The web server is already restarted and it's irrelevant for this. So let's try this again and click resend. And here we go. We have our code. Here's your one-time code. Boom, boom. So that's just better now. Because the good thing is now I've now set everything up to work, you know, closer and closer to where the real execution path will be. And this is kind of like doing like mock tests and stuff like that, where we just have a, you know, when we're in debug mode, we don't actually try and go and send the mail because I haven't set up the SMTP server credentials or anything like that, but this allows me to do everything. And then I know if I keep using this pattern and don't just like print stuff with a to-do throughout my app, all I have to do is add that, you know, do that configuration, test it to make sure like emails are actually sending, and everywhere that's calling this is going to now use that once I turn email debug mode off. All that being said, I think we finished another task. Let's just open up the other thing again. git add duck, git commit dash m, sending emails with debug mode. And we also like implemented the verification code, email triggers, something like that. All right, I'm gonna take a little break, use the washroom, all that kind of stuff. Probably back in 5. If while I'm gone, if you guys are still hanging out, people still hear it. If you want to leave a question in the chat, I will address it right when I get back. Before we get deep into things, please do, and I look forward to returning and continuing this work. All right, I'm back. There's no question in the chat, so I am realizing it is 1:40 and I haven't eaten lunch yet, so I am going to actually just end the stream now, because I don't want to just sit here and eat. Unless I would do that. I would do that if you wanted, but that sounds really boring, especially if there's no questions to answer. So thanks for hanging out, and I'll be back on at some point. So just just come visit me. Come visit me here again, and check out my other content and whatever. Anyways, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.